When the alien ship slipped out of warp space, there was a quiet hum that echoed through the cabin. None of the crew expected anything unusual. They had come back to a planet they once visited thousands of years ago, a planet they believed was slow, quiet, and barely beginning to understand the world around it. 30,000 years was nothing for their species. For them, it was like returning to an old, forgotten storage room. They expected Earth to be untouched, peaceful, and primitive, just like they had left it. But the moment their scanners activated, nothing looked familiar. Bright bands of lights wrapped around the continents. Strange metal objects floated above the planet in orbit. The surface was covered in patterns, massive shapes, straight lines, glowing dots that looked far too organized to be natural. Their ship intercepted thousands of signals bursting through the atmosphere. They were fast, strange, full of human voices, music, digital pulses, and messages bouncing between satellites. The crew stared at the data in shock. They had left behind a world of early human small tribes who hunted animals and painted cave walls. Humans then did not even understand metal properly. And now the planet below was full of gigantic structures, machines that flew, and advanced communication networks. None of this should have been possible. They circled Earth once, then twice, trying to make sense of the readings. The land masses were the same, but everything on top of them had changed. Oceans shimmered with ships. The sky was filled with trails from aircraft. Cities lit up the night like clusters of stars. The aliens were not scared yet, but they were confused, and confusion made them uneasy. The real shock came when they flew to the place where their old base was supposed to be. According to their records, the base was built deep underground, protected by layers of stone and metal. It was impossible for nature to destroy it. The structure was made of alloys that survived supernovas. No earthquake, flood, or erosion could remove it. Yet when the ship reached the exact coordinates, the land looked completely different. Instead of empty plains, there was a massive human city covering the entire area. Huge buildings rose into the sky. Roads stretched out like veins. People walked everywhere, unaware that an alien craft hovered silently high above them. The crew scanned the ground, expecting to detect the heavy signature of their old base under the city, but there was nothing. The rock formations had changed. The underground layers were smooth and clean, as if someone had carved away the entire base with perfect precision. No debris, no fragments, not even a tiny piece of their metal remained. It was as if their base had never existed at all. The crew grew tense. Their species used extremely strong material, one of the hardest substances known in the galaxy. Even they had trouble cutting through it. For it to vanish completely was impossible unless a powerful force had removed it on purpose. Their captain, calm but clearly disturbed, asked for deeper scans. The ship fired a low-frequency beam underground, searching for hidden traces. The results made the crew even more uneasy. The ground below didn't just lack the base. It looked like the entire area had been reshaped thousands of years earlier. Layers of Earth were rearranged in ways that didn't match natural history. The aliens realized humans had built over the land long before they even gained modern technology. Whatever happened to the base happened far back in human history, but something still didn't make sense. Humans didn't have the technology thousands of years ago to remove an alien structure. They didn't even know what metal tools were at that time. The aliens argued quietly among themselves. Some thought humans must have discovered the base in ancient times and slowly dismantled it, piece by piece, over generations. But that was impossible. The alloy would have killed them long before they could cut through it. Others thought some unknown enemy might have visited Earth and stolen the base. That idea frightened them even more. There were dangerous species in the universe, beings who took technology from other civilizations. If one of them had come to Earth, humanity could be in danger without even knowing it. But the strangest detail was this: the ground still held faint traces of energy. Not natural energy, but something artificial, something that resembled a teleportation event. The readings were extremely old, almost faded, but still present. It looked like the entire base had been pulled through a wormhole. That discovery silenced everyone. Wormholes were advanced technology. Very few species in the galaxy could make them. If someone used one to take the alien base, it meant the thief was powerful, intelligent, and extremely dangerous. The crew checked for records of known wormhole signatures. They hoped it was a pattern they recognized. But when they compared it with their database, the results shocked them even more. The energy signature didn't belong to any known alien race. It matched something else. Human experiments. The crew stared at the readings again and again. They checked the data for errors. They scanned the area 3 more times. But the answer remained the same: the wormhole that removed their base thousands of years ago had energy patterns identical to human-made wormhole tests from the last few centuries. Humans, primitive cave dwellers they once studied, seemed to have developed technology far beyond what their species expected. And somehow, using those experiments, they might have accidentally transported the alien base to another location. The aliens were both fascinated and alarmed. They had underestimated humans. They assumed humans would remain simple creatures, taking tens of thousands of years to reach even basic technology. Yet here they were running complex machines, traveling through the sky, sending signals across the planet, and maybe even experimenting with wormholes. It wasn't just unexpected. It was unbelievable. The captain ordered the crew to gather more information about modern humans. They listened to radio signals. They watched broadcasts. They listened to people talk in different languages. They saw humans studying the stars, building machines, exploring space, dreaming about the future. Each new discovery made the aliens more cautious. If humans had the power to move their base intentionally or by accident, they were far more advanced than the aliens had assumed. And if humans discovered more alien technology, they might develop even stronger tools. Maybe even tools that could challenge the galaxy's most powerful species. Serious discussion began again inside the ship. Some crew members believed they should make contact immediately. Humans had clearly evolved quickly, and if left unchecked, they might become a threat, not out of malice, but out of curiosity and ambition. Others believed contact would be dangerous. Humans were unpredictable, emotional, and still growing in knowledge. If they realized aliens existed, their reaction could be chaotic. No decision was easy. And everything depended on finding the missing base. The ship continued scanning Earth from a distance. But one thing was certain: their simple mission had turned into something far more complicated. Humans were no longer primitive beings. They were a force the aliens needed to understand. For now, the crew decided on one thing: they would investigate quietly, without letting humans notice them. Not yet. Not until they understood what happened to their base, and how humans became so advanced. But even as they made this decision, they could not help feeling uneasy. Because somewhere on Earth, without knowing it, humans were already using fragments of their old technology. And that meant the past was going to collide with the present much sooner than anyone expected. The alien ship hovered silently over the planet, scanning endlessly, while inside, the crew tried to make sense of everything they were witnessing. 30,000 years ago, they had left Earth behind as a quiet, barely notable planet. Now it was buzzing with life and technology that they could barely understand. Every day, every year seemed to have brought new layers of development, and the speed of it stunned even the oldest and wisest among them. The crew began to focus on understanding humans themselves. They had always been curious observers of primitive species, studying early humans during the time they had a small base on Earth. Back then, humans were fragile, limited and predictable. They had no understanding of energy beyond fire. They hunted with simple tools, lived in small groups, and struggled to survive against nature's challenges. Their lives were short, full of struggle, and the aliens thought they would remain insignificant for millennia. But something had changed. Humans had grown. They had learned to cooperate, to organize, and to manipulate the world in ways no one had expected. Large cities sprawled over the surface. Roads stretched for thousands of kilometers, and machines flew through the air. Signals crossed the planet in an instant, and knowledge was no longer limited by geography or time. Humans were no longer simple. They were extraordinary. The crew began to dig into the data they could intercept. They observed broadcasts, signals, and communications. They listened to human languages and watched their behaviors. One crew member, who specialized in cultural patterns, remarked quietly, "They are not just advanced. They are evolving faster than we can predict. Their learning is exponential." Another crew member, a scientist who studied energy manipulation, checked the energy signatures they had seen near the old base location. The base was removed, they said, not destroyed. There's evidence of a wormhole, but it's unlike anything our species has done. And they hesitated. The energy patterns matched some of their recent experiments. The word recent caused a ripple of concern. The captain leaned forward. "You mean humans did this?" The scientist nodded slowly. "It's possible. We assumed this planet's species would never reach such technology without guidance. But the patterns suggest they might have discovered something from our old base long ago and are experimenting on it now." The room fell silent. The implications were enormous. 30,000 years ago, humans were primitive. Now, they might have touched technology that the aliens themselves could not fully control. The captain broke the silence. "We need to understand their capabilities. We cannot act blindly. If humans can manipulate a wormhole, even accidentally, we could be facing a civilization that is more advanced than we thought. And if they discovered more of our tools, we are looking at a species capable of unexpected innovation." The crew divided their tasks. Some focused on scanning human infrastructure from orbit, analyzing the patterns of energy, construction, and movement. Others intercepted communication signals, trying to decode messages, news, and public broadcasts. Every piece of data revealed more astonishing progress. Humans had built massive machines that flew through the air and traveled through space. They had machines that could communicate instantly across continents. They had explored parts of their solar system. They had discovered energy sources that their species had not expected to see for thousands of years. The aliens realized that humans had not just caught up, they had jumped ahead, achieving levels of understanding that were almost frightening in their speed and creativity. As they studied, the crew discovered something even more intriguing. Human history contained hints, scattered through myths and stories, of strange objects that did not belong to the planet. Legends spoke of mysterious stones that glowed, objects that fell from the sky, and places where the ground itself seemed different. At first, the aliens dismissed these as primitive imagination. But then they realized the legends matched their own records of the base. Humans had found fragments of their old technology thousands of years ago, passed them down, and gradually integrated the knowledge into their societies. One of the crew members, a historian, commented, "They might have unknowingly used our materials to build their understanding." Imagine that. A species discovering pieces of advanced technology and over centuries, using it to leap forward in their development. Another crew member frowned. If they can do this unintentionally, what happens when they intentionally study and experiment with our technology? They might surpass us. The captain leaned back, deep in thought. We cannot underestimate them, but neither can we confront them prematurely. We must observe, gather more data, and understand their true capabilities. If we act too soon, we risk triggering fear, aggression, or even chaos. For weeks, the aliens observed quietly. They watched. As humans built massive cities, sent machines into orbit, and explored their own planet in ways that mirrored the alien technologies in the base they once built. They noticed that humans experimented with energy in strange and unexpected ways. Some experiments seemed primitive. Others were astonishingly precise. And always, hidden in their infrastructure, were fragments of materials that could only have come from the alien base. The crew began to suspect that humans were far more capable than even the most optimistic alien scientists had predicted. And yet, the humans seemed unaware of the full extent of what they were achieving. They were innovators without knowing the true origin of some of their tools. They had unlocked potential, not through direct knowledge, but through curiosity, creativity, and relentless experimentation. One evening, as the alien ship passed over a human city glowing in the twilight, one of the crew said quietly, "They are not the same species we studied 30,000 years ago. They have become something different, something unpredictable." Another replied, "They may not even see us as we see them. To them, we are just observers, maybe myths, maybe something they cannot comprehend. And yet, every day, they move closer to understanding the universe in ways even we cannot anticipate." The captain remained silent, watching the data streams. "We need to prepare for every possibility," he said finally. "We cannot assume that curiosity alone will keep them peaceful, but we also cannot assume they are hostile. We must learn from them, observe them, and be ready to make contact, but only when we understand what we are dealing with." As the ship moved into a higher orbit, the crew discovered something that made their hearts pound. Deep beneath a human city, sensors detected faint energy readings, vibrations, almost imperceptible, but consistent. They were the remnants of the alien base, or perhaps the energy left behind by its removal. It was clear now that humans had interacted with it in some way, though no one could say exactly how. The energy signals were weak, scattered, and mixed with countless other human activities, but the pattern was undeniable. Somehow, the base had influenced humanity's development, not directly, but subtly, over thousands of years. The crew realized the truth. Humans had grown because of what they found, even if they didn't understand it. Pieces of alien knowledge had been integrated into their cultures, their stories, and their tools. Humans had advanced by experimenting, innovating, and adapting in ways that the aliens had never expected. "This is remarkable," one crew member said, almost whispering. "We thought humans were fragile, limited, and slow. And yet, look at what they have become. They are not just survivors. They are creators." The captain nodded slowly. "And that makes them dangerous. Yes, but also fascinating. We may have underestimated them for millennia. They are more capable than we imagined. We need to study them carefully, understand their strengths, and decide how to proceed. For now, observation is our only option." The alien ship continued its silent orbit, scanning, learning, and watching. Below, humanity moved through its daily routines, unaware of the eyes above them. Humans were building, experimenting, and dreaming just as they had for thousands of years. But now, the aliens knew that these humans were something new. They were a species that could reach for the stars, a species that had taken pieces of an ancient, powerful technology and turned it into something of their own, and the aliens understood. One final, important truth. Earth was no longer a primitive planet. It was a world full of potential, a place where something extraordinary had begun, and the future, whatever it held, would depend on the choices humans made next. The alien ship glided silently above Earth, a dark shadow in the night sky. Inside, the crew gathered around the main observation window, studying the planet below. Humans moved like ants across cities, highways, and farmlands, completely unaware of the eyes watching them. The more the aliens studied, the more they realized how much humanity had grown. What had started as curiosity now felt like a challenge. Humans were clever, fast learners, and their ingenuity was something the crew had not predicted. The captain spoke softly, almost to himself. We underestimated them. We thought they were primitive. We thought they would be easy to predict. We were wrong. The crew began preparing a detailed investigation of the area where their old base had once stood. According to their ancient maps, it had been located under a flat stretch of plains deep underground. It had been hidden perfectly, designed so no primitive species could detect it. Now, it was covered by a human city filled with buildings, roads, and underground tunnels. The aliens fired their scanning equipment, penetrating the layers of earth below the city. What they found shocked them. The underground terrain had been altered extensively. Natural rock formations were replaced with smooth geometric patterns. Soil layers were rearranged. It looked as if someone had carved out the underground in ways that defied natural explanation. But the base itself, the structure they had left behind, was gone. No trace remained. One of the scientists, responsible for energy and structural analysis, said quietly, "It didn't collapse. It didn't erode. Something or someone took it. Entirely. Perfectly." Another crew member added, "We're seeing faint residual energy. It's similar to what we expected from a wormhole, but this is strange. It's mixed with energy patterns that match human-made experiments from centuries ago." The captain's eyes narrowed. "Are you saying humans moved it?" The scientists shook their heads slowly. "Not fully, but the energy signatures suggest they might have caused it unintentionally, perhaps through experiments, curiosity, or discoveries that triggered the removal." The crew fell silent. 30,000 years ago, humans were barely beyond survival. Now, they had developed technology that could manipulate space, even if only in experiments. That was far beyond what the aliens had expected. It was not just advanced, it was unpredictable. The crew decided to use stealth drones to investigate further. These small, invisible machines flew into the city, slipping between buildings and underground tunnels. They scanned energy sources, recorded human activity, and traced unusual power signals. Every step of the way, they discovered more evidence of humanity's interaction with alien-like technology, not in one hidden laboratory deep beneath the city. The drones detected unusual metallic fragments embedded in human machinery. The alloy resembled nothing humans should have been able to produce. Energy readings around the fragments suggested they were once part of the old base. Over thousands of years, humans had somehow integrated these fragments into their experiments. They were unaware of their true origin, but the aliens recognized them immediately. Another drone tracked a faint but consistent wormhole pattern. The energy signature was weak, scattered across multiple sites, and diluted by human technology. Yet, it matched the pattern left by the base when it disappeared. The aliens realized the humans had moved the base, or perhaps its energy, without fully understanding what they had done. "This is incredible," one crew member whispered. "Humans are building, experimenting, and unknowingly manipulating technology that even we consider advanced. They are learning without guidance." The captain's voice was quiet but firm. "This is not just curiosity anymore. This is evolution. They are learning faster than we can predict, and they are using knowledge we thought was lost. We must proceed carefully." The crew continued scanning, moving from one human city to another, following the faint trail left by the missing base. They discovered more human labs experimenting with energy sources, metal alloys, and machines that could manipulate gravity in small ways. Some experiments were crude and clearly early stage, but others were precise, suggesting a sophisticated understanding of energy, matter, and physics, one scientist. Analyzing human development patterns said, they are integrating knowledge without knowing its origin. They have learned from fragments, myths, and discoveries over thousands of years. Their growth is not linear. It is exponential. Each generation builds on the last, and the results are astonishing. The captain leaned back, thinking, if humans continue at this pace, they will surpass even our technology in ways we cannot predict. And they are doing it without even realizing the full potential of what they are working with. Another crew member added, we also need to consider their creativity. They do not follow patterns like other species. They experiment, fail, adapt, and improve. That is why the base could have disappeared and reappeared in their hands without them fully understanding it. Their curiosity is a force of nature we cannot control. The aliens realized they needed to understand not just the technology humans had discovered, but the humans themselves. They began studying human behavior, observing daily routines, decision-making processes, and interactions. They noticed patterns of learning, cooperation, and innovation. Humans were driven by curiosity, creativity, and ambition. Even when resources were limited, they found ways to innovate. When systems failed, they adapted. One crew member commented, they are resilient. They are unpredictable. And they are creative. We may have underestimated them for thousands of years, but now it is clear they are capable of things we never imagined. The captain nodded slowly. This investigation is no longer about recovering a base. It is about understanding a species. Humans are no longer primitive. They are something new, something unique. And if we approach them too aggressively, we could trigger fear or conflict. We must observe, study, and plan carefully. The crew moved closer to a major hub of human activity where energy readings were strongest. Beneath a sprawling urban area, they detected a network of tunnels, laboratories, and storage chambers. Within these chambers were remnants of materials that had originated in the old base, slowly being repurposed in human experiments. Some of the materials were incorporated into machines, others studied and analyzed in laboratories. The humans were building knowledge piece by piece, never realizing the origins of what they had discovered. The captain said, this is more than we could have imagined. They are learning, adapting, and growing without guidance. The base did not vanish. It transformed. It became part of their evolution. The aliens were filled with a mix of admiration and unease. They had expected primitive species, easy to predict and control. Instead, they found humans who were clever, resourceful, and capable of unimaginable progress. And they realized that humanity's growth was not limited to technology. Humans had developed cooperation, social systems, and problem-solving skills that allowed them to integrate discoveries faster than any species the aliens had encountered. As they continued their investigation, the crew began to understand a profound truth. Humans were not just advanced, they were exceptional. They had an ability to adapt, learn, and create that no species could fully anticipate. Their development had been slow at first, but it had accelerated exponentially, especially after discovering fragments of the alien base. Even without fully understanding what they had found, humans had taken those fragments and turned them into something new. The aliens also recognized another important detail. Humans were still curious, still experimental, still learning. Unlike many species that plateau after reaching certain levels of knowledge, humans continued to push boundaries. Their mistakes became lessons. Their failures became opportunities. And the base, once part of their civilization, had become a catalyst for growth. The captain finally spoke, his voice quiet but firm. We must continue our investigation. We must understand how humans have grown, what they are capable of, and what they might do next. Observation is our only choice for now. Any premature action could trigger a chain of events we cannot predict. Humans are no longer the species we once knew. They are extraordinary, and we must respect that, even as we prepare for what comes next. The alien ship remained in orbit, scanning, watching, and analyzing. Humans went about their daily lives below, unaware of the forces studying them. They built, experimented, and dreamed, unaware that the aliens were learning as much about them as they were about the universe. The aliens had discovered a startling fact. Humans were unpredictable, intelligent, and capable of creating solutions, even from incomplete knowledge. And the base that had disappeared thousands of years ago was no longer lost. It had become part of humanity's story, a hidden influence that helped shape their evolution. The crew realized that their mission had changed. They were no longer simply investigating a missing base. They were witnessing the rise of a civilization that could, in time, challenge expectations, explore the stars, and perhaps even reshape the galaxy. And with that realization, the aliens knew they had to proceed carefully. Humans were clever, resourceful, and creative. They were growing faster than anyone had expected. And the future of Earth and the fate of the alien base would depend on how these two civilizations interacted. The alien ship moved quietly through Earth's orbit, invisible to the human eyes below. For 30,000 years, they had returned expecting a familiar, primitive world, and instead, they found something they could never have imagined. Humans were no longer simple or predictable. Every discovery seemed to reveal another layer of ingenuity, another proof that they had grown in ways the aliens could barely comprehend. The missing base had become the thread that connected this growth, and the crew was determined to follow it to its source. The captain instructed the ship to track unusual energy readings that seemed to come from above the Earth, far beyond the surface. They discovered a faint but consistent signature in a location far from any known city or base. It was small, almost hidden, but the pattern was unmistakable. The energy resembled the wormhole signatures from their earlier scans, the same type that had transported their base. Unlike the signals from the surface, this one was contained, controlled, and steady. A scientist specializing in energy systems leaned forward, scanning the readings. "It's a structure," they said, voice low with awe. "It's not on the surface. It's in orbit, floating, artificial, and it's using technology that incorporates fragments of the base." The crew's reactions were a mixture of astonishment and concern. Humans had somehow found the missing base, or at least pieces of it, and had moved it to a location in space. Even more astonishing, the technology was being actively studied and experimented on. The implications were enormous. This species, once considered primitive, had not only found alien material, but had figured out how to manipulate it. The captain nodded slowly. "We need to understand what they are doing before we intervene. This is not a threat, not yet, but it could become one. Humans are unpredictable, and if they realize the extent of what they are working with, they might do something dangerous." The ship moved closer to the energy source. As they approached, the crew observed an orbital station, massive and complex, unlike anything the aliens had expected humans to build. It was composed of multiple layers, with laboratories, energy cores, and storage areas for advanced materials. The station was orbiting the planet with precise calculation, and everything on it seemed functional, organized, and carefully maintained. A crew member scanned the exterior and detected fragments of the alien base integrated into the station systems. The materials were connected to power conduits, energy regulators, and structural supports. Humans had not only preserved the fragments, they had incorporated them into functional technology. The aliens realized that humans had learned to adapt these fragments to their own designs. One of the scientists shook their head in disbelief. "They are using pieces of our old base as part of their research. They may not understand everything, but they are experimenting with what they have. They are learning, They are improving. The captain's expression grew serious. We have underestimated them. We thought they would remain primitive, predictable, and limited. But they are not. They are intelligent, adaptable, and capable of manipulating technology we left behind thousands of years ago. We must proceed carefully. The crew decided to observe the station over time. They watched humans moving through the corridors, studying devices, and running experiments. Every movement, every calculation seemed purposeful. Humans were experimenting with energy flows, manipulating gravity, and testing devices that interacted with fragments of the alien base. Even their failures were instructive. When a device malfunctioned, the humans analyzed the results, learned from the error, and made adjustments. It was methodical, patient, and remarkably effective. One of the crew members, an expert in behavior analysis, said, "They are not only experimenting with technology, they are experimenting with understanding itself. Every step is a lesson. Every failure becomes knowledge. This is learning on a scale we have never observed in another species." The captain nodded. "It is also why they have progressed so quickly. They are cumulative learners. Knowledge passes from one generation to the next, and they improve it with each step. The base, its technology, and its fragments have acted as a catalyst, and they did this without realizing it." As they continued their observation, the aliens discovered the most astonishing fact. Humans were not only experimenting with alien materials, but had also recreated small-scale wormhole events. The energy signatures were weak, unstable, and inconsistent, but they were there. The humans had accidentally triggered technology that could move matter across space. While the humans did not yet understand the full potential, they were replicating phenomena that the aliens' own species considered advanced. The crew discussed what this meant. "If they continue at this pace," one scientist said, "they will understand and control what we left behind. They will innovate. They will improve. And eventually, they may surpass us in some areas." Another member added, "It is a species we cannot predict. They are driven by curiosity, adaptability, and creativity. They are learning faster than expected, and they are doing it independently." The base did not vanish. It became part of their evolution. The captain ordered the ship to adjust its orbit and follow the humans' research activities more closely. The crew realized that understanding humans was no longer optional. This was a species that could change the balance of power if left unchecked. But at the same time, the aliens were fascinated. Humans had achieved this without guidance, without the knowledge of their origins, and without the resources the aliens had assumed were necessary. For days, the crew observed, analyzed, and recorded human activity. They discovered laboratories filled with devices powered by alien alloys, energy cores that mimicked the base's original systems, and humans running simulations and experiments. Every detail was precise, every action purposeful. Even small mistakes were documented and studied. One scientist commented, "They are not simply learning from fragments. They are using fragments as a foundation for innovation. They experiment, adapt, and create something new." "They are extraordinary," the captain agreed. "We cannot underestimate them, but we also cannot intervene. Observation is critical. We must understand what humans are capable of, what they know, and what they might do next. Any misstep could trigger fear, hostility, or unintended consequences." As the days passed, the aliens began to piece together the truth. Humans had discovered the base fragments long ago, probably during early civilization. Over centuries, they had passed knowledge down through generations, integrating it into their culture, tools, and technology. They had developed experiments, adapted materials, and even recreated aspects of the base's energy systems. And now, they had moved the fragments into orbit, building a research station that allowed them to experiment safely. A captain reflected on this realization. They have done all of this without fully understanding what they have. And yet, they are progressing faster than we predicted. The base was not lost. It was transformed. And humans have transformed with it. The crew felt a mix of awe and concern. Humans were not just advanced. They were capable of growth that could surpass expectations. And the alien crew had a new understanding. The human species was now a force to be reckoned with, one that could challenge assumptions and create innovations that even the aliens' most advanced species might not foresee. The captain made a final decision for the moment. We continue to observe. We study. We prepare. But we do not interfere. Humans must remain unaware of our presence. They are learning, adapting, and experimenting. That is their strength. And if we act too soon, we risk destroying what we came here to understand. As the alien ship drifted silently above the orbital station, the crew continued their scans, observing humans working, experimenting, and unknowingly advancing far beyond what the aliens had ever predicted. The missing base had not disappeared. It had become part of humanity's evolution, a hidden catalyst that had transformed an entire species. And the aliens knew one thing for certain. The future of Earth was no longer predictable. Humanity was no longer primitive. They were creators, learners, and innovators. And whatever came next, the aliens would need to understand them fully before stepping forward. The alien ship drifted quietly above Earth's atmosphere, invisible to humans below. For weeks, the crew had watched, recorded, and analyzed human activity, slowly piecing together the truth about the missing base. Humans had discovered fragments of alien technology long ago, integrated them into their experiments, and even moved pieces into orbit. The aliens had observed it all without revealing themselves, learning how humans thought, created, and adapted. But observation could not continue forever. Humans were growing more sophisticated every day. They were experimenting with energy, running simulations, and testing devices powered by alien alloys. The aliens realized that sooner or later, humans would notice something unusual in orbit, and the crew feared that humans might respond with panic or aggression if they detected the alien presence. One night, as the ship silently passed over a major human research facility, alarms flashed on the human consoles. Scientists had detected unusual signals, strange energy readings that could not be explained. Equipment whirred, and screens lit up with patterns that looked like something out of the impossible. The humans had no idea what they were seeing, but their instincts told them it was something intelligent, something powerful. The crew watched as humans began preparing defensive measures. Satellites shifted position, energy barriers were activated, and automated systems scanned the skies. The humans were alert, cautious, and tense. They did not know what they were defending against, but they sensed a presence. Inside the alien ship, the captain spoke calmly. "We cannot risk being attacked. Humans are intelligent and quick to respond. We must make our intentions clear without causing fear. We need to communicate." The crew agreed. A small, focused team prepared a mathematical sequence designed to show intelligence and intention. They chose something simple, universal, and peaceful. Numbers, patterns, and sequences that any species with reasoning ability could recognize. It was not a message in a language, but a greeting of proof that they were not hostile. The signal was transmitted toward the research facility. On the human side, scientists noticed the sequence and froze. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. Numbers, patterns, and flashes of light repeated in a way that suggested intelligence. At first, some scientists thought it was a glitch, an error in the instruments. But then the patterns repeated, consistent and deliberate. One researcher whispered, This is intelligent. Someone is trying to communicate." The humans were cautious but curious. They began crafting a response, using their own mathematical patterns to signal back. The exchange was slow at first, simple flashes and sequences. But gradually, the humans realized that whatever they were communicating with was intelligent, patient, and observant. It was not attacking. It was listening. Inside the alien ship, the crew monitored the responses. They were relieved. Humans were not reacting with fear or aggression. They were attempting to understand. Slowly, step by step, the two sides began to establish contact. The aliens sent more complex sequences, incorporating simple problem-solving puzzles and visual patterns. Humans responded, sometimes correctly, sometimes with mistakes, but always learning and adapting. The first real breakthrough came when the humans created a repeating pattern that the aliens recognized immediately. It was not just a sequence of numbers or shapes. It was a form of logic, a way of saying, "We understand. We see you. We mean no harm." The aliens responded in kind, using a more advanced sequence that confirmed their peaceful intentions. The humans reacted with awe. Equipment was temporarily abandoned as the team focused entirely on the signals. Scientists and engineers worked together, coordinating calculations and translating the alien patterns into something they could comprehend. Slowly, a rudimentary understanding emerged. It was not language yet, but it was the beginning of a conversation. The captain of the alien ship felt a surge of relief. "This is the first step," he said. "They are intelligent, cautious, and willing to communicate. We must continue carefully, guiding them without frightening them. Any mistake now could endanger everything we have learned about them." As the signals continued, the humans realized that the presence in orbit was not a threat, but something they could interact with. Some scientists suggested sending an unmanned probe to respond directly, carefully mirroring the sequences sent by the aliens. Others recommended waiting, fearing that any sudden movement might be misinterpreted. After hours of discussion, they agreed to send the probe. The aliens watched the probe as it approached their ship. They analyzed its systems, energy emissions, and communication devices. It was primitive compared to the alien ship, but functional, clever, and adaptive. The humans were cautious, observant, and thoughtful. They were testing the limits, experimenting, and learning all traits that the aliens had observed on Earth for thousands of years. Finally, a response came that the aliens could fully interpret. The humans had created a signal using light and energy, a form of simple logic combined with pattern recognition. It was deliberate, clear, and peaceful. The aliens confirmed it with their own signals, establishing the first unambiguous communication. Inside the alien ship, the crew celebrated quietly. After millennia of uncertainty, the two species were beginning to understand each other. It was not a full conversation, not yet, but it was the bridge, the first connection between humans and an advanced alien civilization. The captain spoke to the crew, voice calm but filled with meaning. "This is a pivotal moment. Humans have demonstrated intelligence, caution, and curiosity. They are learning at a pace that is remarkable, and they are capable of adaptation and growth. But we must proceed carefully. Any sudden revelation could cause fear, misunderstanding, or conflict. We are observers, but now we are participants." The humans, unaware of the alien crew's thoughts, continued to study the signals. They experimented, sending variations, adjusting timing, and analyzing responses. Slowly, patterns emerged. They began to recognize logic, cause and effect, and intention. It was an unprecedented discovery, proof that another intelligent species existed. Observing them from above. Inside the alien ship, the crew prepared for the next step. They decided to reveal themselves visually, but in a controlled manner. They illuminated a section of the ship with patterns that the humans could see through telescopes, careful not to make it threatening. The humans watched, eyes wide, as lights and forms shifted, creating shapes that suggested intelligence, movement, and purpose. For the first time, humans saw the presence directly. They did not panic. They did not attack. Instead, they studied, documented, and analyzed. Slowly, the realization sank in. They were not alone. And whatever they had detected before, the energy patterns, the strange signals, was now explained. The aliens observed human reactions carefully. Curiosity, intelligence, and caution defined their responses. They did not act recklessly. They were methodical, thoughtful, and adaptive. The crew noted this with admiration. Humans were clever, capable, and surprisingly composed in the face of the unknown. After days of careful observation and careful exchanges, a tentative understanding formed. Humans realized the presence in orbit was intelligent, patient, and non-hostile. They began to design more sophisticated signals, attempting to communicate in ways that combined logic, mathematics, and visual patterns. The aliens responded in kind, gradually increasing complexity. The breakthrough moment came when both sides managed to establish a simple question and answer pattern. The aliens sent a basic query using energy pulses. The humans responded correctly, demonstrating comprehension. The aliens confirmed the response with a signal that acknowledged understanding. For the first time, both species knew that the other was intelligent, capable of learning, and willing to interact peacefully. Inside the alien ship, the crew felt a mixture of relief and amazement. Humans had proven themselves to be intelligent, observant, and capable of communication under extraordinary circumstances. For 30,000 years, the aliens had underestimated this species. Now, the truth was undeniable. Humans were capable of growth, understanding, and adaptation beyond expectation. The captain summarized the situation. Humans have proven themselves. They are intelligent, cautious, and capable of learning. They are curious, resourceful, and capable of understanding complex ideas. Our observations have been correct. They are extraordinary. But we must continue with care. Their growth is unpredictable, their curiosity unstoppable, and their creativity unmatched. Any sudden move could cause fear or aggression. We proceed slowly, guiding them without controlling them. And so, the first tentative connection between humans and the alien species was established. Communication was slow, deliberate, and careful, but it was real. The humans had discovered that they were not alone, and the aliens had confirmed that humans were intelligent, capable, and worth understanding. The crew realized that the missing base, the fragments, and the humans' experiments were not merely a scientific curiosity. They were the bridge to a relationship that could change the future of both species. Observation had led to contact. Contact had led to understanding. And understanding would lead, eventually, to collaboration, discovery, and shared knowledge. For now, both species remained cautious. But the first contact crisis had been averted. Humans had not panicked. Humans had not attacked. Humans had responded with curiosity, logic, and intelligence. The aliens knew they were witnessing a species that could shape its own future, adapt to challenges, and reach for the stars. And in the quiet of orbit, as signals pulsed between Earth and the alien ship, the crew realized one thing clearly. Humanity was extraordinary, and the missing base had become the key to understanding how powerful a species could become when curiosity and intelligence were combined. After weeks of careful observation and cautious communication, the alien crew finally decided it was time to reveal themselves more clearly. They had learned that humans were intelligent, resourceful, and capable of understanding signals far beyond what the aliens had expected. The humans had responded with logic, patience, and curiosity, and the aliens realized that any further delay could result in missed opportunities. The ship moved closer to Earth, descending slowly toward an isolated area where humans could safely study it without interference from the rest of the world. The energy shields were lowered just enough to make the ship visible, while still protecting it from accidental human contact. The humans noticed immediately. Teams of scientists and engineers rushed to the observation points, their eyes wide with disbelief. This was no longer just a signal or a pattern on a screen. They were seeing an intelligent ship hovering silently, perfectly crafted and unlike anything they had ever encountered. Inside the alien ship, the captain spoke quietly to the crew. "We are about to take the next step. We must make it clear that we come in peace. We must show them that we are not here to control them, not here to harm them, but here to share knowledge if they are willing to accept it." The crew nodded. They had studied humans for thousands of years, and now they understood what made them remarkable: curiosity, adaptability, and a desire to learn. These traits had made humans capable of moving fragments of the alien base into orbit and experimenting with technology that even the aliens considered advanced. Humans had grown far faster than anyone had predicted. The aliens opened a communication channel, not with words, but with images and patterns that conveyed intelligence and intent. The humans studied the projections carefully. Symbols appeared on screens, showing the structure of the alien ship, the history of the base, and the energy patterns that had been left behind on Earth. The humans began to understand the connection between the missing base, their own experiments, and the fragments they had discovered over centuries. One human scientist whispered to a colleague, It's as if everything we've been studying for years has a source. It's not just coincidence. These beings were here all along, and the technology we've found is theirs." Inside the alien ship, the crew watched the humans' reactions carefully. There was no panic, no aggression, only fascination and careful observation. The captain smiled slightly. "They are ready," he said. "They understand enough to begin collaboration, and they are cautious enough to approach it responsibly." The aliens projected a visual representation of the wormhole that had removed the base thousands of years ago. Humans studied it, and slowly they began to understand. They realized that their ancestors had discovered fragments of advanced technology long before the modern era, and these fragments had been passed down, studied, and slowly adapted over generations. It was not just a story of human innovation. It was a story of evolution guided, unknowingly, by alien influence. The humans were amazed. They had always known that some of the fragments they had discovered were unusual, but they had never imagined the true origin. Seeing the history unfold, they finally understood that they were not merely experimenting with unknown materials. They were continuing a legacy that had begun long ago, a legacy that connected their species to the stars. The aliens then began to demonstrate some of the principles behind the technology. They used controlled energy flows to power small devices, showing how the alloys could generate energy, manipulate gravity, and even interact with space-time in controlled ways. Humans watched carefully, taking notes, making calculations, and asking questions through signals. Their intelligence and focus impressed the crew. Every response, every calculation, showed that humans were capable of understanding and applying knowledge far beyond what had been expected for a species that had once been primitive. One human engineer projected a solution to a small energy problem using the principles shown by the aliens. The aliens analyzed it and confirmed it was correct. The humans had not just copied what they saw, they had adapted it, understood it, and applied it in their own way. The captain leaned forward, speaking to the crew. "This is why we observed for so long. Humans are not just learners, they are creators. They take what they understand and build upon it. That is the key to their evolution." As the days passed, communication became more sophisticated. Humans asked questions about the universe, about energy, about space travel. The aliens provided explanations through patterns, simulations, and controlled demonstrations. Slowly, humans began to understand more about the universe than ever before. They were learning not just about technology, but about the principles behind it, the forces that shaped planets, stars, and galaxies. One human scientist asked about the potential dangers of using fragments incorrectly. The aliens responded, showing examples of what could happen if energy was mismanaged, if materials were mishandled, or if principles of space-time were violated. Humans studied carefully, understanding the risks and incorporating safety measures into their experiments. It was methodical, precise, and deliberate, exactly the approach the aliens had hoped for. The alien crew also explained the history of their species, interactions with Earth. They described how they had observed early humans, built the base, and how its disappearance had influenced human development. Humans listened intently, connecting the dots between legends, ancient artifacts, and modern discoveries. For the first time, they understood that their evolution had been guided indirectly by technology that predated recorded history. The more humans learned, the more they realized how much they had already accomplished. They had moved fragments of the base into orbit, built experiments around them, and developed rudimentary control over energy and gravity. They had done all of this without knowing the full context, and yet they had succeeded. The aliens watched with growing respect. Humans were not only capable of learning, they were capable of exceeding expectations. One of the crew members commented quietly, "They are extraordinary. They took what we left behind, and without guidance, they have created something new. Something uniquely human." The captain nodded. "And that is why we must continue carefully. They are capable, but they are still learning. They must guide themselves. Our role is to provide insight, not control. We are partners, not masters." As the days turned into weeks, humans began working with the aliens to integrate fragments into larger systems, experimenting with energy flows, gravity manipulation, and small-scale space travel. The collaboration was careful, deliberate, and respectful. Humans asked questions, the aliens responded, and both sides learned from each other. It was the beginning of a partnership that had been thousands of years in the making. Humans also began to understand the ethical implications of using alien technology. They realized that this knowledge was powerful, capable of changing life on Earth, and potentially dangerous if misused. They developed rules, guidelines, and safety protocols, ensuring that every experiment was responsible. The aliens were impressed. A human sense of responsibility matched their intelligence and creativity. The first meeting between representatives of both species was arranged in orbit, using the orbital station humans had built. The aliens revealed themselves physically for the first time. Humans saw beings of a form they could not have imagined. Yet the aliens' intentions were clear, peaceful, intelligent, and cooperative. The exchange was cautious but respectful. Words were not used at first. Communication relied on gestures, patterns, and signals. Slowly, understanding deepened. Trust began to form. For the first time, both species realized that the missing base had not just been a location or a structure. It had been the beginning of a connection that would shape the future. The humans. Experiments, curiosity, and persistence had transformed fragments of alien technology into a bridge between worlds. The aliens' patience, observation, and guidance had allowed humanity to grow without fear, without interference, and without stagnation. The captain spoke to the crew quietly, reflecting on everything that had happened. This is more than science. It is a lesson in evolution, curiosity, and responsibility. Humans have proven themselves. They are creators, learners, and capable of wisdom. We underestimated them, and we were wrong. But now, we have a chance to build something extraordinary, a partnership that could change the future for both species. As the sun rose over Earth, the alien ship remained in orbit, a symbol of discovery, patience, and cooperation. Humans below continued their work, building, experimenting, and learning, now aware that they were not alone in the universe. They had a chance to grow faster, to explore farther, and to understand more than ever before. The missing base, which had disappeared thousands of years ago, had not vanished. It had become the foundation for an extraordinary partnership. Humans had found it, studied it, and integrated it into their evolution. The aliens had returned to guide, observe, and communicate. And together, both species were beginning a new chapter, one filled with knowledge, discovery, and endless possibility. The future was no longer uncertain. It was a shared journey, a story of intelligence, curiosity, and collaboration that stretched from the distant past to the limitless potential of tomorrow. Humanity had been tested by fragments of alien technology, and they had passed. The aliens had returned, and now both species were ready to shape a future together. And so, Earth became more than a planet. It became a bridge, a classroom, and a laboratory for a partnership that had begun thousands of years ago, unseen, and would now continue with purpose, respect, and hope for what lay ahead.